And now we're going to go talk a little bit about phase 2, time bank implementation. And the hour world system, which is what we use currently, has some very good video out about how to use the software. I'm going to do a brief demonstration on how to enroll in our time bank and also how to log hours. I'm really just doing that just to market. It's, you know, if you're still with me at this point, this is not essential right now. I'm not even going to be focusing on this stuff until 2022, unless there's more of a demand for me to. But really, this is just where we start recording. The rubber hits the road, so to speak. So let me go through the content here first, and then I'll just do a quick demonstration of how to enroll in our time bank and how to just log the hours, because I'm going to log my time that I'm doing this presentation as well. But during that phase 2 in 2022, I'm going to be offering a lot more training, a lot more content about establishing one-on-one relationships to help develop the habits and make it fun of recording our hours in service and in fellowship. We will be reviewing regional metrics. There's a system that I'm starting to put into place on how we can review, you know, where a regenerative economy is developing geographically, you know, and how to approach underdeveloped areas. We're measuring the 2x2 trend, and I'm going to talk about what that is a little bit more here. The 2x2 trend is how we create exponential growth through our individual efforts and understanding. But what that is, the 2x2 trend, is just how long does it take for each member to establish a new fellowship? And we measure the time that it takes, and we can predict how long it's going to take to get to the first million mark, billion mark, and then the trillion mark. So while we're doing that here, so I'm screen sharing here, I'm going to stop that. So we're just going to give a brief demonstration on how to take the next step. How do you join the time bank? So I'm going to share my screen first on my website. So one more time. So we want to go to, here we go. All right, so we're going to go to the web. So first you go to karmicmargincall.com. Now let me see if I can get my, here we go. Cool. So first thing is go to karmicmargincall.com. And that will pull up the Rogue Counselor blog. And the first thing to do is just scroll down here, click here to fill out an application. And that will pull up this screen from the Our World content. And you can enter in your information. And then this is where you enter in the references, your personal references. So if you're seeing this conversation, I don't expect this video to really gain a lot of traction. So you're probably getting this because I sent it to you or one of the time bank members sent it to you. So you know, just put in as a reference, you know, people you truly want to work with, you know, people you want to build fellowship with. You know, normally I ask, you know, the first reference should be someone who's already associated with the time bank. That doesn't necessarily apply here, especially since you're watching this little tutorial. And the second one would be someone that you would want to reach out to and build fellowship with. We do follow up on all of the references through an email. There are questions that are asked of the references. An email goes out asking, you know, what's it like to work with this person? You know, why would you recommend this person? So we start to develop that relationship through the reference emails. And then when you go to ourworld.org, you can log in here, and I'm just going to do a quick demonstration of how to log hours. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this right now. Again, we're in the phase of just developing fellowships. But I would just encourage everyone, who's watching this and who becomes a member, play around, just play around. You'll learn it by playing and start developing the habit of just going in, every day or every other day. This is nothing fancy. This Our World site, to me, it's a way of just logging those hours, and that's what's important. So if I go in here and I go into hours, I am going to log myself for an hour for doing this presentation, which might be a little longer than an hour. I'm not sure. So I'm going to say I provided this service on December 31st, 2020. Okay, so I'm taking this from the Karmic Margin Call Project itself. So yeah, I think between the time that I'm actually spending giving this presentation and the time I spent setting up, I'm going to give myself an hour and a half for that. So here you can see, other members will come up. So I'm just going to take this from the community bank, the Karmic Margin Call Project. And again, play around with the categories. There's so many categories that come up here. So I'm going to consider this a lesson. It's kind of like I'm giving a lesson about the time bank. I'm giving a lesson about fellowship. So as I look in these different categories just for classes alone, I'm going to say this is a presentation or a workshop. And I'm just going to leave a note that it's the 5-year plan. And then that will go into my bank. So that is an hour that I provided. So that also allows me an hour that I can receive a service from another member of the time bank. So you can see, here's some of my statements here that I've provided 136 hours over the course of the time that the time bank was created. I've received 95 hours and I have a balance of 40 at the moment. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share here and go back to my presentation, PowerPoint here. So the reason why I went through that right now is that will be the emphasis of phase 2 in 2022, where we really help our members now get in the habit of using the software and recording the time. So that's the kind of thing where I feel like with time banking has been around for a while. And I think the only thing that's keeping it from really catching fire and catching on right now is really deepening those friendships, those fellowships. Because it's the kind of thing is like you forget that that's there, and there's so much sophisticated social media technology that it's very easy to forget that there's this really valuable resource, this really valuable time banking system there, that it gets lost in the shuffle. So I think reestablishing personal connection, reestablishing fellowship will help that to become more prominent. Okay, I'm going to move a little faster here since we're getting into the last few phases of the 5-year plan. So reverse market mechanics, putting the 2x2 trend to work for every single member. So what I want to emphasize here is when we establish a regenerative economy and we're creating more emotionally aware relationships, especially when it comes to our services and our skills that we have to offer, I mean, it is a goal. It is a goal to bring $1 million of revenue, $1 million of liquid capital to 1 million members. And that's not just for the bank. That's not just for one centralized power source. That is for everyone. That's what a regenerative economy is. Everybody shares equally with the resources, because everybody does have value. So reverse market mechanics is simply observing, and we do this with a different accounting technique, how we spend our time for changing the rules of exponential money market mechanics. So yeah, this is really heady stuff now, and And I'm just gonna go through this real quickly because I just want to plant the seed about how important your time and your fellowships are. Because the money, the economic system will come easily the deeper you go with the commitment to your relationships. So the 2x2 trend is simply that, if you show up and you demonstrate a commitment to one person, the two of you, one and one will make two. Okay, so I kind of think of that as my partnership with Marta Reese. We've been at this now off and on for about 14 years. So the two of us created a lot of content, and we attracted another two, Parmjit and Nefertiti. So we made four. So through their efforts as well, four is going to become eight, eight's going to become 16. And if that continues, we honor the diversity of everybody's ideas and everybody's point of view. It only takes 20 times repeated. The 2x2 trend only has to repeat 20 times to make 1.048 million. And that's 1.48 million experiences within the regenerative economy, hours, experiences, new relationships, new content of relationships. And I got this here, this ancestral mathematics from Facebook. I'm not sure who sourced this, but I saw it a couple times come up on my Facebook feed, and I really wanted to share it because I think it starts to help people understand the exponential return that your time really is worth in a regenerative economy. I also have an illustration here of a cell dividing into two. Those two cells will divide into four. Those four will divide into eight. We're imitating nature. So a lot of this tends to become more complicated the more you talk about economic systems, but I really like to bring it back to we're just imitating nature. And this story here, this ancestral mathematics, really kind of puts it in perspective. So you look at it, you have two parents, four grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, 16 second great-grandparents. So it goes down to 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, 2048, 9th great-grandparents. For you to be born today from 12 previous generations, you needed a total of 4,094 ancestors over the last 400 years. Think about that for a moment. Just think about that for a moment. And think about if we go back 800 years, that's over 1 million. Over 1 million people, over 1 million acts of procreation made you. To me, that's just amazing. Just be with that for a moment. Be with that. You are the combination of an army of massive amounts of people. Think for a moment how many struggles, how many battles, how many difficulties, how much sadness, how much happiness, how many love stories, how many expressions of hope for the future did your ancestors have to undergo for you to exist in this present moment? All of that energy just to make you, you. So reverse market mechanics is just observing that. And instead of a generation, we accomplish that in an hour. For every hour of fellowship, for every hour of service. There is a $277 global deficit. That money doesn't really exist. But if we change the nature of our relationships, that $277 trillion can be shared evenly within our more emotionally intelligent, evolved relationships with each other. And that's what I see. That's what I see. And that's when I think of reverse market mechanics. That's what I think about. And again, I don't expect this to really hit home yet, but this is where we're going. This is where we're going. So the equal partnership economy metrics tell us three things. And I'm going to show you a sample of an EPE number. It helps us to identify regionally in the country and in the world which areas require attention. Which areas are underdeveloped and which areas are developing, close to standard. Where do we need to establish fellowship? Where does fellowship need to be more present? Where do we have to focus our conversations to kind of transcend that duality that exists right now, that polarity, the polarization? Velocity rate that measures, are we meeting the goals as scheduled? I think once enough people understand the basic information, and a lot of this is really advanced information. Again, if you're following along, you're advanced. But once people start understanding even just the basic information, I expect that the efforts will be doubled every month. And I think that's being conservative. So the way the business plan is set up, we're anticipating, a doubling of effort, doubling of hours, and therefore a doubling of revenue every month starting in 2024. So, and that, a lot of that is our work here as core fellowship members to make the material more accessible. Again, I'm just one person, and I'm pretty sure at this point this information is somewhat accessible, but it's through experience that you make it your own, and you'll provide a different experience for someone to experience all of this, and that's what's right for you, and that's what's right for them. For me, this is what's right for me at this moment, having this information and wanting to share it, and practicing sharing it before I bring it to my core fellowship. It also measures the growth of the regenerative economy with respect to the extractive economy. So, I say, $1 trillion in 5 years. So that takes 1 trillion out of the 277 trillion global debt. And we start to see a shifting. We start to see a shifting of psychology, a shifting of power structure. We're going beyond the ever-present war, the ever-present fight between socialism and capitalism, which is really just emotional regression. There are good things. There are functional things about both socialism and capitalism. And when we can sit down as individuals and learn more about why we're having a negative reaction to someone, and develop our personal responses, and taking our own personal step forward as individuals, we can come together in fellowships, and we can bridge that gap. We can bridge that psychological gap between those polarized ways of thinking. But it starts here. It starts with you, and it starts with fellowship. All right, real quick, let's go here. Some of the key questions we start asking as we're developing, and we want to establish the 2x2 trend, where we see our efforts doubled every month. So here is a sample of an EPE number. Okay, so the first part of that just represents the series, and this number is just a specific number, for the member. So PA, it's the state of Pennsylvania, and when we bring up a spreadsheet search, or when we go automated, we bring up a search, it just tells us how many members are in Pennsylvania and whether or not it's an under or overdeveloped region. The number here, the MS is just the initials of the member. I'm Michael Shoeman, so I put MS in there. This is just a sample number. So we use these EPE numbers to see what the growth is like in each region, and we have a specific code for each state, each city, each county, and we start asking questions as to what regions are overperforming, which regions are underperforming. We look at things like poverty rate. In some of the regions that are over or underperforming, are they in a low poverty rate? Because what represents to me when there's a region that's experiencing higher poverty rates, more people are in poverty, it just means their social capital is being more exploited. So we bring this system to places that are kind of experiencing higher poverty rates to really have the deeper conversations and uproot the social capital that is available in that region. Are there organizations in underperforming regions that are open to exploring this work? So we might develop fellowships with local activist or nonprofit organizations. So that's one of the questions we ask there. What are the niche fellowships that are emerging in both over and underperforming regions? What kind of trends are starting to emerge? What are people focused on? And what niches are experiencing a lot of growth? Because what that shows us is that competition is starting to become cooperation, with those areas of focus. Are there established regional fellowships in underperforming areas? Is there some form of leadership established in the region? So that's where, we start looking at, are there clear-cut regional fellowships established in the state, in the county, in the city? Where do people have kind of like a center point to go to learn more about fellowships and the regenerative economy? Are the service hours evenly dispersed between the member owners? We can start to look at, are there people who are giving more than they're taking, or are they taking more than they're giving? How much time are they still having to spend in the extractive economy as opposed to the regenerative economy? So these are things where we develop fellowships and friendships and relationships. We make it easier to spend more time in the regenerative economy. Who are the member owners within the degrees of separation to an underperforming region or niche? Okay, yeah, that's a little bit of my jargon, but we explore the relationships between core fellowship, like myself, or some of the 32 members who will be established this year. What are the degrees of separation between them and someone who might be in an underperforming region? Who are the people who are in those degrees of separation? Does a trend emerge? Is there a niche that we might want to focus on to help develop an underperforming region in the regenerative economy? So that might be like, there might be people who are passionate about creating sustainable ecological solutions. Some people might be passionate about, deeper understanding of global warming. That might be a potential niche fellowship. But these are the things that we might start to look at to develop underdeveloped regions. So yeah, would this reveal a potential fellowship to increase velocity rate in an underperforming region? So so these are just some of the surface questions that we're going to start to ask ourselves and look at in phase 3 during the reverse market mechanics application. So see business plan. So the business plan on page 26 has more of these exploratory questions. All right, final slide. 2024 is about automation, about really starting to integrate the technology that is available now and some of the technology that has not been made public or made aware to really start to automate the regenerative economy. I put together a little video, which is kind of like a meditation on this. So what we will ask is, how long will it take to generate the first $1 trillion in a regenerative economy? So that's what starts to emerge during phase 3. Phase 4 is about complete upscaling. So you see here, there's a pyramid. I think of that as the extractive economy. And there's a little dot in there, which represents the first relationships within a regenerative economy. So there's my little cosmic thing there. And there's Nefertiti and Marta. So there's that core fellowship starting to emerge. That core fellowship, turns into a larger core fellowship, 2 by 2. 4 becomes 8. 8 becomes 16. 16 becomes 32. 32 becomes 64. And it continues to expand out So these are all fellowships that are starting to expand out, circles within circles. We start to grow kind of like a new organism through binary fission or mitosis within this extractive economy. And all of these circles are fellowships starting to pop up in different regions, popping up in different locales of the world. And up at the top of that pyramid, which is where the centralized leadership is, where they do a lot of dualistic things like war and contrived poverty, start to change things a little. Crash, start to observe collaborative principles, curiosity, mutuality, connection, observation, and then we start to understand more what's at the heart of duality. We transcend that. And that's kind of like my little philosophical bit. Yeah. So that's it. That's it. That is the rundown, the presentation of the first 5 years. Again, a lot of material, but if you stuck with me for this long, thank you. Thank you so much. Again, if there's anything that you would like more clarity on, if there's something that you're confused about, if there's something that you want to explore more, please contact me. My email address is admin@karmicmargincall.com. And anything where there's still a disconnect, anything that still feels unclear, that's a potential start for a fellowship. And I think that's it. I'm feeling pretty complete now. So I'm glad that. Thank you for coming with me on this test run before I present it to my core fellowship, and it's going to be completely different because we're all going to be contributing to that conversation. But I'd love to. As we're in these beginning phases in phase 1, I would love to establish that one-on-one connection with you. If some ideas come up, or if you have your own system, or if you have your own ideas, and you're starting to see a correlation, please reach out to me. Again, this is Michael Shoeman. I'm the coordinator of the Virtual Services Time Bank and the administrator for the Karmic Margin Call Project. Thank you for joining me.